and pleasure to be here with y'all this afternoon. Thank you again so much for being here. And I'm incredibly excited to share a little bit about myself, a little bit about my story, and hopefully some important leadership lessons that will help each and every one of y'all along your journey. But also I want to take questions from y'all as well. So I'll try and be mindful of time. So just if you have any good, deep burning questions, please let me know. I also have my cards with me, so if I don't get to your question, feel free to email me, call me, and happy to chat. So, first and foremost, when I reflect upon my story, I am constantly reminded that the American dream is very much alive and well. I don't come from money. I don't come from a politically connected family. My grandfather was a refugee from the Korean War. My parents were immigrants whose primary focus was on doing what they could to make ends meet. And yet today, I have an opportunity to serve as a Georgia State Representative for House District 101, as chair of the Gwinnett State House delegation, of course Gwinnett being the political epicenter of change where we've made so much history in just the past 12 months. And I also have an opportunity to make history as the first Asian American Democrat and as the first openly gay man ever to serve in our Georgia State Legislature. What is true for me is true for each and every one of you, which is that again, never in my wildest dreams could I have imagined that I'd have an opportunity to be where I am. But again, the American dream is alive and well. Okay? All right. So there's 3 key lessons that I wanted to share with y'all, and then we'll jump into some questions. But first and foremost, in the face of hardship, when you're faced with challenges, I encourage each and every one of y'all to transform your pain into purpose, your anger into action. Okay? Number 2, know that each and every one of y'all have an enormous amount of power. You have power and influence, so use it wisely. You have that in your individual capacity and in a collective capacity. But know that you have power. And then lastly, especially for the next generation of leaders who are here with us today, rise up and lead with love. Okay? So those are 3 key lessons I hope to impart with y'all today. So first and foremost, transforming pain into purpose, anger into action. I think very much that's how I was able to be where I am today. Back in 2014, I just passed the bar exam, I had just finished my master's program, and I had an opportunity to serve on Jason Carter's gubernatorial campaign. Right after graduating, I had an opportunity to write talking points for President Jimmy Carter's grandson, someone who could potentially be the next governor of the state of Georgia, my home state. I felt like I was on top of the world, especially having just graduated. And yet, a month later, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. It struck my family like a thunderbolt. She was healthy and otherwise working full time. But when she was first diagnosed, she was given 4 to 6 months to live without treatment, and 2 years with treatment, no cure, given how far the cancer had progressed at that time. At the same time, my family was faced with eviction. We were struggling to make ends meet, and certainly my mother as a single mother, with English as a second language, had her fair share of trouble. And so it was this culmination of incredibly challenging circumstances that myself, my mother, my sisters, that my family was facing. In the midst of it, I was asked the question, what breaks her heart? What breaks her heart? And as I had gotten my mom into stability with regular chemo treatments, the answer to that question, which I continue to wrestle with and struggle with, was the lack of access to health care in the state of Georgia. Every single time I had taken my mother to her chemo appointments, it was a constant reminder that access to health care is a matter of life or death. I understood that full well, seeing my mother battle cancer, day in and day out. And yet in the state of Georgia, because of our leadership, we decided not to expand Medicaid, which left more than 500,000 Georgians without access to health care. That meant that there were 500,000 fellow Georgians, my neighbors, who did not have the same fighting chance that my mother had. And so that was what broke my heart. That hardship and trying to figure out what I can do with it ultimately created a fire in my belly to take a stand and to run for office. I challenged a 3-term Republican chairwoman. I had no shot at winning, quite frankly. Most folks on both sides of the political aisle thought I just didn't have what was needed to win. Certainly as a young person, challenging someone who was a former high school principal for about 30 years in the district. That's about 5-10 minutes away from here. Certainly as an Asian American, where there had only been one Asian American ever to serve in the state of Georgia before, and none who had ever served in the district that I was running to represent. There was not a majority of Asian Americans who lived in the district. And then, of course, what, for me personally, I had never seen an openly gay man successfully run for office in the state of Georgia. So, how was I able to proceed? Again, it was transforming that pain into purpose, that anger into action, wanting to do something about the hardship that my mother experienced and to do good with it. When all was said and done, that's all I was trying to do. To raise attention to an important issue, to do my part to raise that awareness, and to hopefully help my fellow Georgians. With the grassroots campaign of political first-timers, a lot of folks who really didn't know what to do but cared and wanted to try and make a difference. We ended up knocking on tens of thousands of doors and had just conversations with our neighbors. I let folks know why I was running for office, to make sure that every Georgian had access to health care, and I asked them what they wanted, what issues that they faced, what challenges they also faced. It was an incredible experience, challenging and difficult. And yet, in 2016, I ended up winning. I ended up winning the very same night that Donald Trump became our president. It was a very surreal experience. Half my team was crying, half my team was celebrating. But again, it was the opportunity to transform that pain that my family, that my mother, and myself was feeling, to try and do something with it. Now, since I've been elected, we have seen some progress, but the road remains long, to say the least. After beating the odds, my mother did pass away in 2018. She surpassed the original life expectation that was given for her, and it passed away in 2018. The reason why I still ran for office and the personal connection I had, especially with regards to healthcare-related issues, is something that still drives me today. It still serves as a source of strength, despite the fact that it is also still a source of pain. But again, each and every one of you, especially when faced with difficulties in life, have an opportunity to use that hardship to do something good. It's ultimately your choice as to how you proceed when faced with challenges that you will experience. Now, when it comes to some of the issues in the state of Georgia, we still have not expanded Medicaid, but we have made progress. We've expanded Medicaid for pregnant women in the state of Georgia. We've expanded Medicaid for kids who are given an opportunity to otherwise be automatically enrolled in the Medicaid program. But all of that to say, Again, I can never have imagined where I would end up today. With all the opportunities that I've been entrusted with, again, my approach has been quite simple. It's simply to do as much good as I can with the opportunities that I've got. But what's true of me is, again, also true of each and every one of them. Right? When faced with hardships and challenges, especially today, when we're faced with unprecedented challenges, we remain in the midst of the COVID pandemic. That's, again, it's difficult to conceptualize the loss of life we experienced in just the past year. We've seen a historic rise of violence and discrimination against Asian Americans. We saw the March 16th shooting that happened just a few months ago, in our own backyards. We still have the existential threat of climate change that continues to lurk, the effects of which we continue to see more clearly each and every day. The historic droughts on the West Coast, the 1,000-year floods that are occurring. These are difficult times, very challenging times. And these are the challenges that the next generation, that we are inheriting. But again, I want to remind you that with these challenges are also opportunities. There are opportunities for each and every one of us to grow and become the leader that we're supposed to be, to have the impact that we can possibly potentially have, not just in terms of our family and our friends, but our community, our state, and our country. And so I want to encourage you, when faced with these overwhelming challenges, don't let the hardships you face become an excuse to do nothing. Don't allow the cynicism or the doubt to creep in. Again, they can be a source of strength, which I think now more than ever is how we have to confront the challenges that we face, especially if we're going to work. I want to challenge y'all with a question. What breaks your heart? Reflect upon it. Think about it. What is that issue that keeps you up at night, that won't let you go? Right? I think for each and every one of us, it's a little bit different. We all have our own journeys, our own lives. But when all is said and done, it's the same process. So what breaks your heart? And then do something about it. Similar to strengthening your body, your mind, through regular exercise, you can practice character, which I think is so important, especially in light of the challenges that we face, especially in terms of what we need from the next generation of leaders. We need leaders who can demonstrate patience, kindness, perseverance, wisdom, integrity. Don't underestimate even the smallest act of kindness. The analogy that I often give is that it's like dropping a pebble in a pond. Right? That one act of kindness. All the ripple effects that then occur can become a wave of change, which not even you may be able to understand. Just as an example, I was the first Asian American Democrat ever elected in 2016. I was 1 out of 180 in the Georgia House. Today there are 5. And we still have an opportunity to continue to make history, to break barriers, and ensure each and every one of our communities have a seat at the table and a place in the Georgia House, which is the people's house. That's your house. So number 2, know that you have an enormous amount of power and influence, especially with the overwhelming challenges that I think can sometimes want us to just crawl up into a ball. I think it's important for us to remember that we do have that, that we should not feel powerless, even when circumstances may otherwise lead us to believe so. And I think the best example that I can give to y'all, especially for Asian American voters here in Georgia, but really voters of color in the state of Georgia, by turning out in unprecedented numbers, we changed the history of this state. We changed the course of this country. The power of your vote, as John Lewis would say, is the most powerful nonviolent change agent we have. And we used it in our individual capacity. We voted in historic numbers amidst a deadly pandemic. And we elected leadership, the benefits of which we've already begun to see. We passed the American Rescue Plan. And now we have a provision in there that will help cut childhood poverty in half. Because of your vote, because of the organizing that we collectively did. Right? So don't underestimate the power you have. As American citizens, we have the opportunity every 4 years to elect the leader of the free world. Think about that. Think about the impact that will have around the world, especially in light of the global challenges we continue to face, not just with climate change, but the rise of authoritarianism and the recession of democracy, which protects the people's, our ability to live our lives with dignity, and ultimately choose the direction in which we need to live. Don't allow the injustices in this world to overwhelm you. Again, look throughout history. Time and time again, when confronted with unprecedented challenges, especially within the Asian American community, we have persevered and we have made progress. Look back on history to find hope that we too can do the same. And I very much believe that we still have that capacity. But it requires each and every one of us to again understand that we have an incredible amount of power, and we must use it. So remember, your voice matters, your vote matters, and do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Lastly, rise up and lead with love. 2 parts, right? Rise up. Often, leadership begins with people. That's one of the most important lessons that I've learned in 5 years in which I've been in office, right? And that requires overcoming your internal demons and challenges. But it also requires overcoming the fear, the natural fear that will sometimes creep up. Being fearless doesn't mean to live a life where there's nothing that will scare you. It means understanding that there are things that we should be worried about, concerned about. Still overcoming that and not necessarily react just out of fear, especially when we should be fearful. But good leadership begins with. So you have to rise up. No one will tell you to rise up. That's something that you better do for yourself. 2, lead with love. What does it mean to lead with love? I'm not talking about a Disney princess or prince type love. I'm talking about love that requires sacrifice, love that requires selflessness, a love of country, in which you put others before yourself. Again, it's one of the most important lessons that I've learned in the 5 years that I've been in office and had an opportunity to serve, which is servant leadership. The President of the United States is a servant to each and every one of us, right? And the same is true for myself, for your senators, for your representatives. That's the beauty of this system, in which ultimately power derives from each and every one of us. Right? So vote. Make sure you vote and don't give your power away. But servant leadership, I think, is so important in this system, especially if we want to overcome challenges in which we are helping one another. When we are asking what you need, how I can help, and to do so in a collective capacity in which together we overcome and continue to move. So, 2 quotes I'll provide as well, provide some additional clarification and context. Abe Lincoln asked the question, how do you destroy your enemy? It's a great question that I like to ask some of my staffers sometimes in politics. How do you destroy your opponent? How do you destroy your enemy? You make it your friend. Right? You find common ground. You understand that there is more in common regardless of your partisan affiliation, regardless of your race, your gender, all the differences, all the various differences. When all is said and done, we are all brothers and sisters. We're all of one species. The challenges that we face are one and the same. The COVID-19 virus doesn't care if you're Black, white, Asian, or Hispanic. Right? We have to understand that. We have to understand our shared humanity. And that, again, divided house cannot stand, as AAPI calls it. To one of my favorite quotes from Dr. King, which I think is so important in this moment in time, is darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Fear cannot drive out fear, only love can. I think that's a perfect summation of what is needed in this moment in time, in which there is so much fear, particularly amongst Americans. Fear of one another, fear of the pandemic, fear of change. What is the antidote to that fear? It's not more fear. It's not more fiery rhetoric attacking them. It's love. It's understanding that, yes, you may be driven by fear, but ultimately, the concerns that you have are the same concerns that I have. And knocking on thousands of doors in my district, everybody wants the same thing, regardless of whether you're old or young, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, gay or straight. People want safe communities. They want good schools. They want good jobs and an opportunity to thrive. That's something that we can all get behind. Let's welcome the debates as to how we can best ensure those opportunities, that promise of America, of liberty, equality, justice for all of us. That's something that we can do. So again, leadership is about service and doing good for others. Knowing you have a limited amount of time. Knowing that all of us are here stewards of the resources and the talents that we've been given. Whether that is our health, our intellect, our money. What are you going to do as a steward of the resources that we've been given? How are you going to lead things better than you are? Those are questions that are good to your task about. Hopefully, each and every one of y'all will. So, again, in closing, as we face unprecedented challenges, given the power each and every one of you have, rise up and lead with love, and together, let's work together and ensure the promise of this country, the promise of ensuring our individual and collective freedom, the equal dignity of all of us, and justice for each and every one of our communities. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions that y'all may have.